My brother, who is jealous of me, hooked up with my fiancée right after our engagement. I told the whole family, and now they're being cut off. I got engaged recently and broke it off in a span of 2 weeks. My fiancée, Riley, is 23. My brother, Adam, is 27. The night after our engagement, my brother had sex with my fiancée. Riley and I had been together for almost 3 years. She'd been with my brother for almost 3 years, but she threw it all away on the night of our engagement. She told me she was thrilled to be marrying me, but the very next day she hooked up with my brother. I was very upset about it and broke things off through text and blocked her. I also changed the locks on my house so she wouldn't be able to come back. Riley and I had been living together for the past year and it had been going really well, so I thought it was the right time to propose. I never thought she'd betray me for Adam, of all people. She knows he and I have an intense rivalry and don't get along. My dad passed away when I was a baby in an accident. I barely have any memories of him. Adam spent some time with him, but I don't remember him. Adam never liked me. Growing up, he was my biggest enemy. My mom was a single parent, so she didn't have a lot of time to deal with our sibling rivalry. She had to focus on paying the bills and making sure we had food on the table every day. Our uncle, my dad's brother, visited often and tried to help out as much as he could. My mom kept in touch with my dad's family even after he passed away. They already lost their son, so they didn't need to lose us, too. Their grandkids, too. My uncle was pretty much the only father figure I've ever known, and he's still my go-to person for Adam. It was my mother. She didn't play favorites, but it was pretty clear that if she had to pick one, it would be Adam. That made our sibling rivalry even more intense because I wanted to be my mother's favorite too. Unfortunately, I was always a bit of a loser growing up. I wasn't good at sports and I was just average at school. I was quite skinny and didn't have any special talents, so I was always very insecure about basically everything. That made it very difficult for me to talk to people, make friends, and be popular. I was a really introverted kid and mostly kept to myself. Adam was quite the opposite. He played sports and was great at it. He wasn't too bad at school either, and he had a very different physique. I was big and sturdy because of my athletics. Being Adam's little brother was even more embarrassing for me because I knew that everybody was constantly comparing me with him and thinking that I was a loser in comparison. I learned to live in his shadow and would just let him walk all over me. My self-esteem really took a hit in my childhood and I was never able to recover from it. I was still affected by it until my last day of high school. I didn't have many friends, and no one wanted to talk to me because I came off as weird. Things changed when I graduated and moved to college. I was a new person there, and no one knew me as Adam's little brother. I really grew into my own. Now that I didn't have to deal with Adam's constant bullying, I could finally be my own person. I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm so thankful that I was able to go to college. I ended up going to college out of state where nobody knew me. I don't think I would have been the person that I am today had it not been for that experience. I have my uncle to thank for it because he was the one who paid for me to go to college. My mother had told me that she wouldn't be able to afford to send me to college so far away and wanted me to pick a location closer to home within our city if possible. However, I had my mind set on going to college out of state, and my uncle was able to cover the costs. My uncle offered to cover my expenses and stepped up. I made a lot of friends there and graduated at the top of my class. My mother and uncle attended my graduation ceremony, but Adam didn't. I hadn't been present at his after moving out. Adam and I didn't really keep in touch for obvious reasons. He hated me for no reason, and I hated him because he made my childhood and teen years a total nightmare. I was glad to be rid of him. We only met on the holidays or whenever he'd come back home for birthdays. It's been years, and that's the arrangement we stuck to. We didn't consider each other family beyond the confines of our house, but I did console him and send him a message when he lost all his money a couple of years ago. He'd quit his job and tried to start his own business, but it failed miserably. My uncle and mother had to bail him out since he was neck-deep in debt. He couldn't go back. He ended up moving back in with our mother for a couple of months until he was back on his feet. Even when he finally found a job, it wasn't as great as his previous one, but he took it because he wanted to move out of his mom's house since he was well in his 20s and felt embarrassed to still live with his mom. That's what my uncle told me, and it was quite upsetting because his life completely fell apart. I felt bad for him and sent him a message of consolation, but I think he misunderstood it and thought that I was bragging or making fun of him, so he blocked me and ignored me for the next couple of holidays. We weren't close when we met, but we tried to keep things civil and at least greeted each other, no matter how coldly. After that message, there was no talking to each other. I should say that Adam's life got better, but he really took the failure of his business hard. Every time I saw him after that, he seemed worse for the wear. My uncle told me that he had switched jobs 7 or 8 times after that, but he didn't seem content with any of them. His clothes got shabbier, and we could physically see the state of his mind reflected in how he acted at family gatherings. He was always either drinking or quietly staring at nothing. I say this from the bottom of my heart, but it really made me feel bad for him. I felt bad for him when I saw him like that. I had always hated him growing up, but now it was just very difficult to hate someone who was already going through so much. My uncle always tried to include him in our gatherings, but he didn't seem interested and would always take off early. I had also started bringing Riley to these gatherings after we had been together for a year. She knew about Adam and even seemed concerned about him, but there was not much we could do. Fast forward to our 2 weeks ago, Riley and I were at my uncle's house for his birthday dinner. I had asked him first and made sure that he was okay with me proposing to her at his dinner party. He was, so I went ahead with it. The family would all be there anyway, and my uncle had a beautiful house with a lovely garden, so it was just the perfect place. I had even invited her parents, but they weren't going to show up until after the proposal, so she wouldn't after my uncle cut the cake. I took Riley outside and proposed. She said yes, and then we went back in to announce it to everyone and celebrate. I did notice that Adam left shortly after I made the announcement, but I didn't think much of it because I was busy with everyone else that evening. Also, he usually leaves early from family gatherings, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Blue Riley and I had a great evening, and then we went back home. She didn't mention anything about Adam or his weird behavior to me after we got back home, which she usually does whenever we go to any family event of mine. We were both really drunk and tired, so I was knocked out as soon as my head hit the pillow. I did wake up accidentally around 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to use the bathroom. When I woke up, I realized that Riley was still on her phone. I asked her who she was talking to on her phone, and she told me that she was telling a couple of her friends about the engagement. It seemed innocent enough, so I didn't suspect anything and went back to sleep soon after. However, 2 days later, while I was at work, I received a bunch of texts from Adam. This was unexpected because the last time we had a conversation, he had blocked me. The texts were screenshots of his conversation with Riley, in which they were planning to get together. They ended up hooking up. It started with Adam reaching out to her to congratulate her on the engagement. She asked him why he wasn't present for the rest of the evening. He told her that he was just upset about a lot of things and wanted to get out of there while he could because he didn't want to intrude on my happiness. He talked about how we have never been friends and he felt like it was inappropriate for him to be present on such an occasion for me. He was making himself look like some sad little puppy who wasn't wanted. But the truth is that I really wouldn't have cared if he stayed for the evening. He only wanted Riley to sympathize with him so it would be easier for him to manipulate her. And that's exactly what happened. She started consoling him and told him that there was somebody out there for him. She also said that I was a great guy, and I didn't mean to rub it in. She told him to apologize to Adam on our behalf for what happened. Adam said he'd never find someone like Riley, so he didn't see the point of searching. The guy started flirting with her and she flirted back. They made plans to meet. I know she went to his house the night after our engagement because she told me she was going to spend the night there. Her friend's place to tell her everything about the engagement. On top of that, Adam had also sent me pictures of Riley's clothes on his bed. It was a sick and disgusting thing to do. I was really taken aback, but I took the rest of the day off and went back home immediately after I received Adam's texts. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but even with tears in my eyes, I decided to get the lock changed. I started packing up whatever I could find, including things I knew were Riley's. I put them in a box and left it by the door. By the time I was done, it was almost time for Riley to come home. I hadn't seen her since the night before because she said she'd go to work right from her friend's place. But now I know she went to work from Adam's house. I wanted to break up with her in person, but after a while I decided that it wasn't worth it. She had cheated on me literally the day after I proposed, and she promised to spend the rest of her life with me. I was very upset, so I decided to end it through text. I sent her a message saying that I knew she had hooked up with Adam and that I didn't want to be with her anymore. I told her that she disgusted me and said that I wanted nothing to do with her or any of her stuff. I was right outside the door, so she could just grab the box and go. I didn't want to see her if she had left anything at home. Then she could come back later and collect it. I told her that we were over and sent the message. A few minutes later, I blocked her. Riley was at my doorstep, knocking and begging me to let her in. She was devastated. I could hear it in her voice. She was begging me to give her a chance to explain herself. She kept saying she knew she'd made a mistake but wanted to explain. It went on for about half an hour, and it was hard for me to stay calm and ignore it. After she tried everything, from crying to manipulation and back to begging, she finally left. I still didn't open the door for about an hour after she left to make sure she wasn't still waiting outside. Sure enough, she was gone. I ordered some takeout, had dinner, and then tried to go to sleep, but I was so upset that I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes. I wanted to do something big to get back at Adam and really teach him a lesson, but I couldn't think of anything. I kept brainstorming on my own for a while, and when nothing came to me, I decided to take the easiest way out and just forwarded those screenshots to everybody in the family, saying, "This is what my dear brother." I turned my phone off and went to sleep. I didn't have a plan in mind, and I didn't set any conditions for my relatives. Whatever they did, it was their own choice. Everyone in the family responded with sympathy and told me that they had blocked him and were going to cut him off from everything. They were shocked when they found out what Adam had done. I reached out to console me except for my mom. She didn't talk to me in the first couple of days after I sent everybody that message. She visited me a few days later, though, and she looked very upset. I knew that she wasn't going to sit and console me like the others. I was right because she had visited me to talk to me about my actions. She told me that she could understand that I was upset with Adam for whatever he did, and rightfully so. Even then, though, she said she shouldn't have made it public. Her reason was that Adam was already suffering a lot. He was a grown man living hand to mouth with a failed business and no prospects in his love life. He would have a few flings here and there, but nothing permanent. It was especially sad because he was a really promising young man when he was younger. Nobody could have imagined that he would turn out to be so successful. I, on the other hand, was not expected to be as successful as I am today. My mom thought Adam did this out of jealousy. I already knew that. I work in an architecture firm and make a good salary. I worked hard to get where I am now. If Adam had done his research instead of jumping in headfirst, his business wouldn't have failed. He wouldn't be making less than half of what I make. While my mother was telling me all this, it almost felt like she was trying to justify what he did. I interrupted her and asked her if she was trying to make it seem okay for Adam to hook up with my fiancée just the night after we got engaged, simply because his life was sad and pathetic. She took a minute and then said that it wasn't okay, but I needed to understand where he was coming from and be a little sympathetic and forgiving. She went on to tell me that the family cutting ties with Adam had hit him really hard and he was miserable. The family gatherings were the only thing that he had going on for him because he felt embarrassed to be around his friends, who were a lot more successful than he was, so he didn't keep in touch with them. My mother told me that Adam was really affected by the fact that his family had cut ties with him. He was miserable and saw family gatherings as his only source of support. He felt embarrassed around his friends, who were more successful than he was, so he didn't keep in touch with them. I was happy about that because I didn't care that he was miserable. He had broken up with me and Riley, so he deserved this. I had no sympathy for him, but my mother thought I should be the bigger person and talk to everyone to convince them to give him a chance. She also wanted me to reach out to him and clear the air. I told her that I wasn't doing any of it. She was crazy to expect that I would reach out to the person who ruined my relationship on purpose. I really just snapped at her. I told her that I knew she had favorites, even though she didn't have to rub it in my face and make me feel so awful. I told her that if I had done the same thing to Adam, she wouldn't have tried to justify it and make it look like no big deal. She probably would have been all up in arms about it. I knew that for a fact. She tried to deny it and we started arguing. It turned into a big fight where she got very upset. She left the after saying that she wouldn't talk to me until I reached out to Adam and tried to sort things out with him. It's been a couple of days since then. My relatives have been checking in on me, mostly my uncle who has been texting with me daily. Riley also sends me messages from time to time, hoping to win me back or at least have a conversation with me, but I haven't replied to her. I haven't blocked her yet either, but I know that I will eventually. I have to and I will eventually. The only person that I haven't heard from after our big fight is my mother, and I really feel bad about it. I already mentioned that I knew my brother was her favorite because they always seemed to have some inexplicable bond, even when I was a kid. My mom never played favorites, at least until now. I just feel very confused about what she said. I am content with my life right now, and it's not like I'm not depressed, but I want my mother in my life. I don't agree with her opinion on Adam and Riley, though. What do you think? Ida, I'm glad you sent my family proof of my brother and my fiancé cheating on me. Thanks to everyone who commented on the original post and read it. I'm glad so many of you had great advice for me on I was looking for advice on what to do next. I was reassured that I wasn't in the wrong. My mother's comments made me feel like I was out of line for what I did. It seems that's not the case. I don't need to reach out to anybody. I also spoke to my uncle about what my mom said. I hadn't told anybody earlier because this was kind of personal. I didn't want to discuss this with other people. My uncle is family, though, so I felt a lot better after speaking to him. He told me that he had also noticed my mother always favored Adam over me. It wasn't always very obvious, but it was definitely there. Anyone could tell that she had a favorite, and it wasn't me. He told me that he really felt awful about what happened with me because he knew how strongly I felt for Riley. Yet, she didn't think twice before hooking up with Adam, despite knowing about our relationship. It was upsetting, but there wasn't much I could do. I was honestly okay since I like to think I dodged a bullet. I haven't moved on from her entirely, but I know I'll get there. That's really not what I'm worried about, though. I don't want to lose my relationship with my mother, but if she acts like this and victimizes Adam, I don't see a way for us to get along or reconcile. My uncle thinks I should just give up. He said he knows my mother and that she won't back down if she thinks she's right. He told me not to hope she'll come around and talk to me because it's unlikely. She's been visiting Adam almost every day since our family cut him off. It hurt that she was still looking out for him. I lost a relationship because of him, and it was pretty important. But I also understand that I can't control the situation, and it is what it is. My uncle taught me to accept things and move on. I tried arguing with my mother and showing her the truth, but she wasn't interested in what I had to say. She was only interested in making sure that Adam had all. I was happy to give him the support he needed. I guess I'll update you on that too. It has been almost 2 weeks since I broke up with Riley. She had been texting me almost every other day for about a week after we broke up. But then she just stopped. I think she probably realized that begging me to take her back wasn't going to work. I don't want to speak to her or hear her side of the story. I don't even know why she thought explaining her side would make it any better. I don't think anything would make it better. As far as I'm concerned, cheating is wrong, and that's just how it is. She reached out to me yesterday, though, and told me that she wanted to come by and collect some of the things that had been left behind. That's when I finally replied. Now we were getting down to business. Instead of our conversations just her begging me to talk to her and me ignoring all those texts, I told her that she could come by today. I was already taking a day off, so I figured I might as well get this over with. She showed up around noon, and I could tell she was really upset. She looked worse for the wear, and she didn't look me in the eye once the whole time she was there. I didn't say anything to her either after I opened the door. She packed her things, and I sat on the couch in the living room. I didn't look at her once she was done packing. She told me that she was going to leave, and even though I had a lot to say to her, I just said goodbye and then went back to my phone. She didn't deserve anything more than that, and after that, she was just gone for good. It feels weird, but in a nice way, because this just means that I don't ever have to talk to her or be reminded of her by things around the house or her messages. I blocked them. I watched our favorite movie on my own a few minutes after she left. I haven't heard from my mother yet, but I'm getting used to it. I know now that she wouldn't have taken my side because I'm not Adam. I did everything I could for her, but it was never enough. I'm tired of trying. My uncle told me that he also had a fight. My uncle tried to defend me, but she didn't like it, so now they're not speaking. I can't believe she'd sacrifice her relationship with both of us just to stick up for Adam. She knows he's a jerk, but she's doing it anyway. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I guess if that's what she wants, then fine. It's been a month since I posted here last. I can't believe that until recently, I was still complaining about how my mother doesn't love me. I've made some positive changes, though, and I just don't care what my mother thinks. She's as delusional and selfish as my brother. That's probably why they get along so well. I was quite unfortunate to be related to both of them, but now I have no ties with either of them. I'm grateful for that because they don't deserve someone like me, and neither did Riley. I was always too good for them. If they couldn't see that, then that's on them. It's their loss. I don't have to feel bad for anything, and that's why I don't feel bad about the fact that nobody in our family talks to them anymore or invites them to any events. They just have there's no link to any of us anymore, and I couldn't be happier. Riley and I haven't spoken since she came back here to collect her things for one last time. I blocked her afterwards, and so did most of our common friends after they found out the real reason behind our engagement falling through. My mother did try to reach out to me a few days ago, but she still doesn't think that she needs to apologize to me, which is just insane. In the last conversation, she kept going on about how Adam is suffering and has been diagnosed with clinical depression. I told her I could give her a psychotherapist's phone number, but that was it. I definitely wasn't going to talk to our family members to make them sympathize with him. Then she started trying to manipulate me by going all emotional and sentimental on me. She was really laying it on thick, saying that she'd already lost her husband, and she didn't want to lose the two most important men in her life now because of a silly fight over a girl. It was interesting that she saw the fight as silly and petty because, as I remember it, the fight was over my fiancé, and it wasn't either of those things. Adam had decided to hook up with Riley on purpose, all because he wanted to make me feel bad. So I think I was within my rights to be angry with him and never speak to him again. As for the rest of our family, I hadn't forced them to do anything. They cut Adam and my mother off because of their own behavior, and I had nothing to do with that. If they want to blame somebody, they should blame themselves. This is what I told my mother before blocking her. Now I can finally move on with my life, and I don't care what happens to them.